And welcome to the Law and Crime Report. It's day 2 of Erica Stefanko's trial out of Ohio. She is charged in connection with the murder of Ashley Biggs, an ex-girlfriend of her ex-husband, who is already serving a lifetime prison sentence for her killing. Now, Stefanko is accused of making a bogus pizza delivery call that lured the victim to a business, and that's where she was killed. We're going to get back to that trial in a moment. Meantime, switching gears right now, we want to talk about Skylar Richardson. She's the teen from Ohio who was accused of killing her baby. Well, she's been released from probation early. Last year, a Warren County judge in Ohio found Richardson guilty of abuse of a corpse. They acquitted her on the most serious charges of aggravated murder and involuntary manslaughter, as well as child endangerment. Well, now that Richardson is 21 years old, she has now repealed, her probation early. She was accused of killing her newborn Annabelle back in May of 2017 and burying those remains in her family's backyard. She was sentenced to 3 years probation. We're going to listen to her statement from the court during her trial last fall.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would do anything and above that you ask, and I understand. And I just wanted to say how sorry I was. I can sometimes be selfish, but I would like to think that I've become better in the knowledge that I've upset everyone and hurt so many people with what I've done. And I'm forever sorry, and I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry, and I understand. And thank you.
All right, so that again was Skylar Richardson back from her trial in the fall. I want to intro our guests right now. Kelly Hyman with us, as well as Imran and Ansari. I believe both of you remember going through this trial here live on the network. It was a long trial. We spent a lot of time discussing this. Imran, I'll come out to you first. What do you make of her probation getting cut?
Well, look, her attorneys made a compelling argument for the court that her probation should be shortened, and the motion was granted. How do I feel about it? Well, listen, she was acquitted of the top charges at her trial. She was sentenced on the abuse of the corpse conviction to probation, and the probation term was not necessarily a long term. People make plea deals for probation on crimes which are don't necessarily have the backdrop that Ms. Richardson's case had. And I'm not saying that someone should be sentenced on crimes they've been acquitted for, but just generally, usually a judge would keep in mind the certain backdrop of the allegations or the crime in imposing a sentence. So 3 years, in my opinion, was not a long period of probation to begin with, but now she's getting it shortened. She apparently has, I think she was taking online classes or is getting her degree. And I hear that she has aspirations to go to law school. So, the motion was granted. The defense had a win. And I know that the family for the father of this child, they don't think that it was necessarily the right thing to do. But the judge has spoken, and her probation has been shortened.
Absolutely. And speaking of the family of the father here, the mother of the father came out and said that Skylar hasn't shown any remorse for her actions. And she even said that her son, the father of the baby Annabelle here, has lost faith in getting any justice for her daughter, which is really just interesting for her to say during all of this. Kelly, what do you make of that?
It's a very difficult situation. I mean, when someone goes through something like this, and I think that it's obvious that the family is mourning, to lose a child that way. And, there's times when it's very difficult. Having said that, as said before, based on what was presented, her probation was basically shortened. And so she wants to move forward with her life. I hope that the father of the child and his mom, could heal during this very difficult time to lose a child, that way. And everyone's entitled to their opinion and do not feel that she is remorseful. Having said that, you saw her in court, and it appeared that she was remorseful. And wanted to move forward with her life and has learned a lot. And hopefully both people can heal and move forward with their life.
All right, Kelly, Imran, thank you both. We're going to switch gears right now back over to our Ohio trial I was just speaking about. We're talking about Erica Stefanko. That trial, it's day 2 right now. And earlier today, we heard the mother of the confessed and convicted killer here, Chad Cobb. We heard his mother speak on the stand. Let's go back and listen to what she had to say.
On June 20th, 2012, had you had any conversations with Erica or Chad, if you remember?
I had one earlier in the week with Chad. They were getting ready to take the family to Disney World in Florida.
All right, and how long were they going to go for? If you know.
I don't recall, maybe 5 days.
All right, and who, when you say the family, it would have been Eric and Chad?
Yes, and the 3 kids.
3, so it had been GC, AL, and
FC, 4 kids, and KC.
okay. So they had already had their second child at that point. Is that,
Yes,
and how old was that second child that they had together?
he was born in April, so he would have been like 2 months.
All right, very young.
Yes,
And that was Casey?
yes.
Okay. So that day, you don't recall speaking to them?
I did not speak to either one of them during the day, no.
So when is the first time you knew something was wrong?
Chad had called in the middle of the night, just said things weren't good, didn't have good phone connection. He did not go into any detail, just said things were not good, but I did not get a handle on what was going on.
All right. And when you say in the middle of the night, what do you mean?
I believe it was after midnight.
Were you aware that the investigation into Ashley's death also included Erica as a suspect?
Yes,
And were you aware that there were requests made for cooperation from your son?
yes.
What did you believe was going to happen if your son testified and cooperated against Erica?
Objection.
Overruled. She can answer if she knows.
Can you repeat the question?
What was your concern if your son Chad cooperated with the state of Ohio and testified against Erica?
Again, I mean, kids are always an issue.
All right, so more there from Cindee Cobb, again, the mom of Chad Cobb, the convicted killer here. Basically, this is an interesting dynamic because we have the mom here on the stand, and we're trying to get to the point that this murder wouldn't have happened if Erica and Chad did not work together. And this witness here, the mom, is going to be key in proving that. Kelly, give me a reaction to her so far on the stand and really what she's been saying. And of course, you know, we mentioned that recording that we're going to get to and listen to hopefully today.
I think she comes across as very believable. It's interesting, in Ohio, someone can decide whether they want to be on camera or not on camera, and she decided not to be on camera. And so I think that she is very compelling and believable. And then when you also listen to the audio, she also basically supports what she says. And so the defense is going to have an uphill battle to try and discredit her, but that's what they're going to do. They're trying to poke holes in her and show that some kind of bias or motive that she has. But otherwise, she comes across as very believable.
And when you say bias or motive, you're talking about because it's her son who was already punished for this?
Exactly. And why did she do the audio tape? What was her motive behind that? Why did she want to do that? And so, yeah, I think that's what the defense is really going to try and do to help discredit her, to show that she had some kind of bias or motive, and that's the reason why she wanted to do it, to help her son or something else, or, you know, maybe have full custody of the child. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what defense are going to do, but definitely they're going to poke holes at all her testimony.
And talking about the recording, you know, she did this secretly, so Erica did not know she was being recorded, if I understand. Talk about that. I know each state has different laws about that. How does that come into play here? And of course, when we hear that recording, that's going to be very revealing. Imran?
Yeah, well, we already know that it's coming into evidence. The judge already ruled on that. The defense made some arguments to try to keep these recordings out. That's already failed. So any argument, whether this recording was taken lawfully or not, as it relates to the evidence in this trial, we already know that the judge is going to bring it in. How could the defense use that? Maybe they could say, well, look, you see how this individual, Chad Cobb's mother, is someone who disregards what the law is. And this is speaking in argument's sake, assuming that Ohio is a two-party consent state. And again, we got to check that, and perhaps we'll get that information over the next commercial break. But let's just say Ohio is a two-party consent state, and there was no consent on behalf of Stefanko to have herself recorded. Well, perhaps, I don't think it's going to be compelling, but the defense could say, well, look at this individual. She's someone who secretly records someone. She's someone who maybe is vindictive, has a motive, which is not necessarily on the up and up. This wasn't done in good faith, and she essentially tricked Stefanko into making this confession. Ultimately, would that be an argument that the defense can carry to the jury, and somehow this jury will disregard this piece of evidence? I don't think that's going to work, but it's something that they have to do, or they could do, if they have to confront this, and they do have to confront this. And I think it's going to be, as we've said previously, a pretty compelling piece of evidence against Stefanko. And, what are we going to have on the defense side? You have to see, but it's going to be something that they're going to have to contend with. And I think the prosecution is really going to rely on this recording because you had the defendant, in her own words, placing her at the scene of the crime, placing her active in the commission of the crime, and it's something that is going to be an uphill battle in terms of getting around.
All right, Imran, Kelly, thank you both. We're going to get to listening to that recording with us here on Law&Crime. And welcome back to Law&Crime. We're talking about Erica Stefanko's trial right now out of Ohio. We've been listening to Cindee Cobb, the mother of the man who's already serving a lifetime prison sentence for the killing here. We've been listening to her. She has a secret recording between her and Erica Stefanko. We're going to get to that in a minute. First, let's listen to more from her on the stand.
But you felt that somehow Erica was responsible.
Yes.
Did you believe Erica was completely responsible for him being there, or partially responsible?
Partially, it took two.
It took two. So you accept the fact that your son is at least partly, if not mostly, responsible for Ashley's death. Is that fair?
Correct.
And you said it takes two. How did you know it took two?
She admitted that she made the phone call.
All right. So at some point in time, you made a recording.
Yes, sir.
Who was there when you made that recording?
Just Erica and I.
Where was the recording made?
in our barn.
Your barn?
Yes, sir.
And when you say barn, is it like an animal barn? What kind of barn is it?
It is a renovated barn. It's heated. Our Harleys are housed in there. There's a bar in there.
A bar?
Yes, sir.
What prompted you to record Erica?
Off and on, through the years, we would have issues. If she got upset about something, she would withhold the kids from us. It would be, until we can sit down and talk, the kids aren't going to be able to come over. This happened several times. We had just come back from vacation, and she wanted to meet with me, to talk. And it was during this time where Chad was wanting the divorce, the tools situation, and I decided I was just going to record. Tired of always being called on the mat and always having the kids withheld from us.
All right, so we've been listening to Cindee Cobb talk a little bit about where she recorded this conversation. We learned that she did it in their barn. We also learned that she did this because she was having past issues with Erica that prompted her to kind of, be curious and do these things to make sure it sounds like she had her bases covered here. Kelly, talk about what we heard just now here from Cindee.
No, I think it was very smart of what the prosecution did, because it kind of shows what was her motive, because the defendant and counsel is really going to attack her on that. And I think they're also going to attack her on the fact that why did she hold on to this information for so long? Why did she wait 3 years? And so I think that was smart of them to preempt that ahead of time before the defense cross-examines her.
All right, we want to play you the recording. We have a piece of it so far. Let's listen to what was played in that secret recording and hear what they said.
Do I think it took two of you to get to where it is today? Yeah. Well, then I'm not disagreeing with that, but it took two of us. It wasn't, he's trying to play it all on me, and that's not right. And the reason that I have a problem with that, aside from just like, I don't think that that's fair. I don't get when he talks to me, I don't get the feeling that he's trying to put it all on you. When he talks to me, he does. Like, I would not have ever even been there if it weren't for you. And my situation with Ashley was because of me. And he
Mrs. Cobb, does that accurately represent the conversation you had with Erica Lyons in March of 2014?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that is part of that secret recording that they played in that courtroom. Imran, what do you think? Here it is. Here's the big piece of evidence we've been waiting for.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough time for the defense, to get around this. And I think that the jury is going to be listening intently to that recording, and the prosecution is going to be putting that front and center when they sum up at the end of this case. It's going to be something that's going to be played. Perhaps, they're not doing it now, but maybe they're going to put up a PowerPoint or a slide, with the statements line by line, which is in this recording. I know that's what I would do. So the jury is hearing it and they're seeing it contemporaneously while that summation is being delivered. But, what are you going to do when you have a recording, not by law enforcement, but by a private individual? And yes, we can talk about all the motives and bias there, being Chad Cobb's mother, perhaps thinking, why did my son get tagged with this and she didn't? But no one put those words in Stefanko's mouth. No one was. That's a conversation. You can listen to the tone of that conversation. No one is yelling. No one is seemingly being forced to say something that they don't want to say. It's a conversation. It's calm, and I think that the prosecution will have an easy time selling to this jury that this conversation was not under any duress. It wasn't coerced. This was Stefanko in a level of comfort, a level of calm, having a conversation with Chad Cobb's mother, and basically admitting her role in this crime. So I think it's going to be a piece of evidence that the prosecution will really hang their hat on, and the defense will have a tough time knocking that hat off the hook.
And in another piece of the recording, we heard Erica say, we heard Cindee ask her if she felt bad about what happened. And Erica said, no, I don't. And she also said, I carried out my part. I think that part of the recording might also be pretty impactful here. Kelly, talk about that piece.
No, I think that's very, very powerful because, people always think about, does someone do something? If they do, is there any remorse? Was there any kind of coercion? Did someone force them to do it? And based on what you said, that's out the window. So the defense have an uphill battle with that. I mean, to cross-examine her on that, but that is very powerful. The prosecution are using the defendant's own words to convict them of the crime, but ultimately it'd be up to the jury to make a determination on whether or not the person is guilty or not.
Is there a chance that on the other side of this, they could say, hey, this recording might not be completely authentic or it might be pieced together? Is there a way they can poke at the recording in that way, do you think, Kelly?
I think they can try, but ultimately they would have to have the defendant take the stand and say, no, that's not exactly what I said. That's not what I meant. They could possibly do that. They could also test the tape or have some kind of expert, come in and as a rebuttal witness potentially and say that, the tape has been altered or something like that. It doesn't appear to be that way. And the prosecution even asked the mother testifying, is this the complete 3 hours and 1 minute? And she said yes, and laid, the foundation to make sure that this is the actual tape and that she kept it in her safe and that only her and her husband had access to the tape. So it's going to be, hard to prove otherwise that the tape is not accurate.
Absolutely. All right, Kelly, Hyman, Imran, Ansari, thank you both. We're taking a break right now. When we come back, plenty more here on Law and Crime.